Perfect. Okay, let's crack on. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone who's attending. This is our 7th now in our monthly webinar series, AI in Action. And what we tend to do, and if you some of you, I can recognize the names that you've been before. But yeah, if you're new, then this is like we have a practical look at how AI is affecting small businesses and small, medium-sized businesses here in Jersey. So today's topic is a little bit different from some of the ones we've done before. It's called Turning AI into Profit. And we're not this time looking at the technology of AI, we're looking at it from a business perspective. So how can businesses go about finding high returns on AI projects and start their AI journey? Hi, Simon. So just a bit of housekeeping to begin with. If you can keep your mic off, that'd be appreciated. If you do have any questions, then by all means ask them, but do keep that in the chat and then we'll come across those questions and answer them all at the end. We've got a Q&A session. We are recording this, so we will send the recording out probably tomorrow or Friday. And you can check all the previous webinars that we've had in the resources section of the Blue Llama website, bluellama.co.uk. So just before we go into the flow for today, just want to talk quickly about Blue Llama and what we're all about. So my name is Gruchy and I'm the founder here at Blue Llama. Blue Llama's been running for about 12, 13, 14 years. I've kind of lost count, to be honest. And we started doing web design and web development, but in recent years we've moved into AI and automation. And that's what we're talking about a lot recently, and that's the whole about this series. So Anish is going to be doing a lot of the presentation, and he is our AI and automation here at Blue Llama. So what are we about? We're about something that we're terming as AI-powered productivity. So that's removing the repetitive and often sort of low-value admin that businesses do and freeing up their team so they can focus on higher value work. So removing that repetitive, mundane, often mundane stuff. And how we go about doing that is a couple of ways, really. Mainly one's process automation, so streamlining your existing business processes and then breaking them down and rebuilding them more efficiently with lots of integration between their systems, using automation tools and using AI to make that simple sort of decision making in between those integrations. But you always want to keep the human in the loop and make sure everything is running well. The other thing we do is AI assistance. So that's kind of building custom chatbots and co-pilots that really understand your business. And then your team can use those and they're empowered with this quick access to information, stops them having to look up stuff manually. And then also we can add into that, as well as just providing information, we can build in sort of agentic capability that can take action on common tasks that your team may do. And then, of course, on top of that, we also build websites and web applications, and we're seeing increasingly that we're using AI in the process of making those as well. So that's a very quick overview of us. Hi, Steve. So today's flow. So I'm going to kick off with just 5 minutes talking about the leadership challenge. So what I mean by that is, why have we chosen today's topic? What are we hearing from senior people in small, medium-sized businesses across Jersey that they're under pressure to start implementing AI, but they just don't know where to start? Then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Anish, who's going to walk you through Granite Trust. So this is an illustrative case study. It's a 50-person trust company here in Jersey, and then walk you through how they identified areas where AI added real value. They quantified the savings of those projects and decided which ones to move forward with to start with. And then we'll look at the results. So how the savings were achieved and how they approached the projects and using what technology. And then Anish will look at the framework. So we'll walk you through this particular framework that we've come up with to identify AI opportunities in your business and then rank those opportunities in terms of return on investment, so you know which ones to start with. And then towards the end of the presentation, before we go into the Q&As, we'll just look at a workshop that we're doing next month, open to 5 businesses. And if you stayed with us to the end of the presentation, you found it interesting, then we're happy to invite you onto our workshop and guide you through the process that we've talked about with Granite Trust, but walk you through it with your own business. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get started. So what are we hearing from leaders in Jersey about AI? So first of all, the pressure, okay? So there's a massive hype around AI. The impact on businesses in the future is going to be massive. Everyone kind of understands that. There's a lot of turbulence around AI. Your competitors may be talking about it, they may be implementing things. So there's like a real pressure, and not taking action and standing still is not really an option. So where do you start? There's no clear framework, is there, with AI implementation at the moment? There's like excitement, but there's also that uncertainty and that fear. So much is moving. There's new software coming out all the time. There's new language models coming out all the time. There's no stability. You might have thought something was great a month or two ago, and now there's something has succeeded it. So the question, you might be asking is, what technology should we be looking at? We don't see a clear way forward with this. And what if you make the wrong choice? Because these things can be really costly, right? So return on investment is super uncertain. A lot of the business leaders don't fully understand the benefits. They don't understand the technology. And then, will our team, if we implement it, will our team use it? And what exactly is it going to do for our business? So those are the questions that are being asked, but we think those questions should be sort of flipped over and reframed. Okay, so it's not just about the tools. What software do I need? That's not the question we think you should be asking. We think it's all about, where can we be more efficient? So where across the business are we leaking time? Identifying those processes that are really time intensive, they're repetitive, they're mundane. Sometimes your team are complaining about these things. There's bottlenecks. They're the necessary evil that needs to be done in your business, but it's not really adding super value. Then you need to look at, actually, what is this time, this lost time, costing us? So work out how much time is being spent on those processes and what that equates to in monetary terms. And of course, it's not just the time and money there. There's also the lost opportunity. There's being more agile. So if you're moving faster, you can be much more responsive to your customers, increase their satisfaction, and you can also be more consistent. If you're using these automated processes, that can often be a lot more consistent than using different people to do the same process. And then finally, is there the potential to use AI to improve margin and free capacity? So look at these processes, break them down. Is there the potential to automate it now that we live in this sort of AI-enabled world? Will there be genuinely improve our bottom line for our business? So those are the questions we think that you should be asking. And now I'm going to hand you over to Anish, and he's going to introduce you to Granite Trust and see how they went about answering these questions. Over to you, Anish.
Great. Thank you, Phil. And thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. As Phil mentioned, jump straight into an example organization that's quite representative of the kind of partners we've worked with, but obviously as a trust organization. So I'm going to share my screen. Great. And give it a second. So we'll start with Granite Trust and what they entail, what the details of the organization is. So they're a 50 staff organization or trust across Jersey and Guernsey. They have around 800 active structures and their growing client book, but a steady headcount, which is also an area that we would identify as a potential strain. So the headcount stays relatively the same year on year, but they're growing quite consistently year in year in terms of new structures that they have. Their tech stack, typical ones that you would normally see: Viewpoint, SharePoint, Teams, the MS365 tools like Outlook, Word, Excel, and Smart Search for looking at particular policies and AMLs. When you're looking across the department, or when we started to talk with Granite Trust and understood the organization as a whole. We saw kind of a slightly disproportionate split across the department. So client services have around 32 staff, compliance and risk, operations and IT find a support between 5 and 7. Client services for us stood out because it's high volume work, high impact work with a number of staff, typically billed by hour as well. And then compliance and risk, and kind of a low number of staff, but again, high volume of work, or the typical repetitive work that is very important to the business. So we could see automatically there could be some opportunity and also strain across the organization here. But to really understand this and dig deeper, we then need to go into what we would call an opportunity assessment. So the way we start with this is kind of taking a step back and trying to understand the core kind of areas or processes in an organization. So the first areas the first focus is the process areas, and then we measure it against specific variables that are important for us to understand which area to focus on. So when sitting with the leadership team, the question that was being asked was, okay, which process is costing us in terms of time the most, and therefore which one is financially impacting the business as well. So to do this exercise, the key things that we are looking at is first time drain. So how many hours per week does this particular workflow or process take from the business? Then we look at the direct cost. So we multiply that by the actual hourly rate of an individual running that process or individuals running that process. Then we look at the potential error and risk. So, we understand if, a particular person made an error in this process, what's the impact that will have on the organization. And then the final one is around the scalability. So let's say the trust had 10 new structures tomorrow. Would that process be able to handle it? And if the answer is no, then it's a high impact area to focus on. So these would be the key areas we would sit down with Granite Trust to understand how their processes are currently operating and measuring them against these particular variables. So when sitting with them, the first thing we do is say, just brain dump the key processes that come up for the organization right now. So, when doing this exercise, we see policy and procedure drafting, board minute preparation, policy and compliant knowledge queries. So, team members coming and asking questions around specific policies to relevant departments, client onboarding, financial reporting and billing, and document filing and archiving were some of the process areas that were discussed amongst the leadership team. When then doing the exercise, when looking at time drain, direct cost, error risk, and scalability block, this is what we ended up coming up with. So this analysis already gives a fairly strong visualization on what to focus on first and what not to. That's going to impact the business.
Anish, can you just, it's just blocking the Google Meet thing there. It's just blocking that.
Apologies.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. So with this visualization, it's quick and easy to see for the leadership team exactly where we might want to focus on when it comes to automation and AI. So what we would suggest is to pick the top 3, not all, of course. And then once you have the top 3, so we can see policy, procedure, and drafting, board minute preparation, policy, compliance, knowledge queries. That's where we start. The next step from here would be to do the discovery. So to understand deeper what is happening step by step in policy, procedure, and drafting, and to really understand the time taken by the process owners or the individuals in that process to quantify the return on investment if we were to develop a solution. So we'll start with policy and procedure drafting, how we would go about it. So when we do the discovery, we look at each step, each process step by step. So for example, the current process would be that someone is identifying a particular policy that needs to either be updated or created by scratch. So That's the first step. The next step is an analyst will review an existing version, make updates and changes based on the new guidance, or create something completely from scratch. They would manually draft this, and this is obviously going to be subjective. And what we hear or heard a lot from Granite Trust is that it was inconsistent in terms of the quality produced for those particular policies. Those policies are then needing to be circulated to relevant stakeholders for feedback and for review, which can take a lot of time. And then with that back and forth with the content structure and wording, you might then come out with a final version. This could take hours, but also delays that could turn up to weeks. So when we understand that process, we then go into quantifying or trying to understand a solution with AI. Now, as an organization for the last couple of years, because we've worked in the Microsoft stack for a significant amount of time with a lot of experience and confidence, we're able to quite easily understand which solution would be best to support this particular process. So even in, let's say, the workshop we do, we're able to present solutions that can help us identify and quantify the time saved as a result of an AI solution. So let's say, for example, here, instead of the individual having to pick up a policy and revise it manually, they can actually go into Microsoft Teams, ask the AI bot to update a specific policy based on the latest JFSC guideline. At this point, the AI can read the existing policy, compare it against the new requirements. The AI can draft it based on house rules and agree structure, length, and reading level as well as tone. Track the changes so they can show to the particular process owner those changes that have been made, and then send it for approval and store it into the relevant SharePoint site. So what could take hours or weeks or days and weeks could be done within hours of a review from a particular person. So what we've seen in terms of this particular discovery is that we can save around 6 hours per policy. It's typically 50 policies that need regular review across the firm. And what is the benefit here? Not just the time saved, but you increase or future-proof the organization by having better quality policies. So the most important thing we look at when we're doing this kind of exercise with organizations is the numbers. So there's no point really diving deep into a particular automation or AI solution unless you know if the numbers make sense. What we hear from a lot of potential organizations who come to us is, and naturally so, is looking at the kind of fancy AI solutions coming out. What we like to do is say, that sounds great, but what we want to understand is, do the numbers make sense? Is this going to have a really high impact on your business? Is this going to support developing the margins that you're looking for in your business? So in this case, it's saving 6 hours a week, £240 saved per week, 12,500 in annual savings. And this is how we've calculated it. So if you've got one policy per week, you're saving around 6 hours. We're looking at a blended rate of about £40 per hour for the hourly rate. And then if you multiply that across 52 weeks, you're looking at about 12,500 per year. So it's a modest saving, but that's not the key goal. The goal is to see, okay, if you look at all three solutions and look at a cumulative full picture saving, that's where you start to see the real impact for these AI and automation solutions. So moving to the next solution or the next process is board minute preparation. So with the particular solution we have in mind, we can go from 60 minutes of manual drafting down to 20 minutes of just a review. So what is the current process? Very quickly, someone identifies a particular entity that a minute or a meeting is about to happen. They have to go out to SharePoint to find the correct template. They need to go and pull all the relevant company information that could be in a different system or in different Excel sheets. That takes time. Once they manually populate the template header with the attendee details, they then have to sit in the meeting, take notes, then draft the full narrative, check minutes for style, circulate, and then chase the sign off. Now, this is kind of a process that may not really go will go unnoticed, but if you multiply the amount of time this takes across the number of minutes that has to be produced, you're talking thousands of minutes in a trust of a 50 size trust that has 8,000 structures. You could be looking at 1,000 meetings or minutes needing to produce per year. So it becomes a very strong case for a process to be automated, where a lot of this stuff can be done automatically with the support of AI. So here's an example. Let's say this particular process owner jumps into Teams, goes to the AI bot and says, can you prep the minutes for this particular company? The AI then will automatically go and find that particular template from SharePoint, take all the information from the entity system, or let's say an Excel spreadsheet, pre-fill the relevant information. Once the meeting is finished, we can automatically upload the meeting notes, or the user can upload them, have the transcript and the documents. The AI then will take that transcript, draft the full narrative using the info from the pre-filled minutes, and then use previous minutes and then the transcript for context, and have that auto-populated and uploaded into the client's SharePoint folder for the minutes to be produced. Now, this is an example of a chatbot that we have created with multiple different organizations. Maybe not specifically the minutes, but it's a very simple use case in which AI can have access to different sources of information, bring it together, and produce a particular outcome, such as a minutes for the organization and for the client. So here, the key outcome would be 40 minutes saved per minute. Existing tools. So if you look at some other solutions off the shelf, they don't have access maybe to the templates or to the different Microsoft tools that you're using. So what we're from the discovery that we've done, we can see that there's about 4,000 more minutes per year. So this has a huge opportunity to fill a particular gap. So in terms of the numbers, what we see here is there's about 13 hours saved per week, about £27,000 annual savings. So this is how it's been calculated. So if we're saving around 40 minutes, say per minute across, and there's 20 minutes per week, we're looking at around about 13 hours a week. And if it's again keeping with the 14 hourly rate, that's about £500 per week, and altogether about £27,000 a year. So again, 20 minutes per week might sound small when you look at it from that angle, but then when you multiply it by the thousands of minutes that happen across a year, you can see a huge potential saving in this process, and as well, not just the savings, but the future proofing, the impact, the consistency, the quality of those minutes being produced as well. It would be consistent in that process. And then the final one is the policy and compliance knowledge bot. Again, and another example use case that we've done for numerous companies. Specifically, we had one that you may have heard is AskMax, building a particular chatbot that had access to policies with an AML and was able to source that information based on particular queries. Now, with this particular use case with Granite Trust, we've already looked at the initial one about drafting or creating policies. Then the next question from him would be, let's say someone has questions about particular standards and policies within documents. This process is very common across trust companies, and here someone might have a particular compliance or procedure question. They have to search the intranet or SharePoint. They have to click many different documents to find that particular procedure, and then once they got the document, what we tend to see quite often is they do a CTRL-F, some keywords, try to find that particular policy, get the answer that they need. If they can't find it, they may email a particular person who might know the answer to that question. Again, having to wait with that delay. Once they get the answer, they then can use it for the information. Again, a simple process may take 5 to 10 minutes. Again, would typically become unnoticed, but then if you multiply it by the number of queries that staff have per week, you could be looking again in the tens of thousands across a year. With AI and its ability now, actually, when AI, the way it has been introduced over the last 4 years, it came out as a RAG system, so retrieval augmented generation, basically taking having access to a huge amount of data or knowledge base and being able to answer questions. So this is a perfect use case for AI to support in this process. So how, again, would it work? Existing teams, and the staff member would ask a question about a particular procedure or standard or a clause within a particular document. AI will have access to all of those policies, procedures instantly, since you are building it in your SharePoint, for example, or whatever database you might be using. The AI will have access to it. They can then return with a sourced answer, direct link to the relevant policy section. And you can also refine how you might want to receive it. So in one example, with an organization that we're working with, not only do we produce the return, the standard, the clause, the page, but we also provide a summary or a way that they might want to write it in a document if they need it for a document. So you can do many different things with it, not just source the information and bring it out. And another bonus is we can look at the analytics. So if there are questions being asked of documents, but the AI is saying that's not there, that's a potential gap that can actually be improved in the policies. So here, in terms of the key outcome, you're looking at about 13 minutes saved per query. 100 queries per week is what we found for Granite Trust. Compliance freed from repetitive questions. So that department doesn't have to keep receiving questions from different staff all over. They can just use the AI chatbot and then improve the bot rather than having to answer questions. So in terms of the numbers, very quickly, 21 hours or 22 hours saved per week, around £860 saved weekly, and about £45,000 saved annually. This is how we ran the numbers. So there's so with Granite Trust, we noticed there's about 100 queries per week, 13 minutes saved per query. So that's about 21 to 22 hours per week. Multiply that by the hourly rate, and then you have 52 weeks, which is 45K. So again, this is an illustrative example of how we would work with organizations, or how we are working with organizations when we're coming up with particular quantifiable savings before jumping into developing solutions. We believe at Blue Llama that's very important, not just for the leadership team to know that they are getting a return on their money, but also that you're building things that has the highest impact for the business, freeing up people's time, but genuinely improving the margins of the business. So before diving in and showing you the full picture, one important part of how we work at Blue Llama is we have a Power Platform first solution focus, where we look at the Microsoft ecosystem and see how the solutions can be designed within your Microsoft tenant. So you're not having to find something off the shelf, look at new different systems, develop custom outside solutions. Your data stays in your environment, and we utilize an already existing and established platform that can support with all the AI and automation needs. So when you're looking at these three different processes, they can stay within the tool framework that we have. So let's say we have a bot that exists in the company called Grant, and what we would do is look at this flywheel and try to look at it from the perspective of how it would be built. So from the first point, when you're building an AI bot, we would typically go to Copilot Studio. The SharePoint would be the document storage and retrieval. So when you're uploading documents, say for example the minutes or the policy and procedure, they will be uploaded into a SharePoint folder for access for everyone. But also if you're retrieving information, we can use SharePoint. So the policy and compliance knowledge queries can exist there. Within Copilot Studio, you can develop and orchestrate tasks for the bot to do, and this will be automatically connected to all the MS365 tools. So Outlook, so it can send or draft emails. It can access Microsoft Word, so we can create new documents, save documents. It can also access Excel and upload information into Excel documents, and all the other typical MS365 applications you might be using. The main front end, or the front door for access and engaging with the bot, would exist in Teams. And then finally, something else that we've been offering organizations and seeing great value is Power BI. So it's great having these tools, but when you're not being able to see its engagement or its usage, you don't know how well it's being used. That's where Power BI can come in and support you. So again, everything here exists in the Microsoft ecosystem. Nothing is new, nothing is outside, and it can all be built to develop all of these three solutions. Another thing that we really focus on at Blue Llama when we're working with companies such as, let's say, Granite Trust, is our solution design core principles. We have three core principles that any solution for those particular three processes or for other processes we develop. The first one is usability. The key question we ask when we are designing or developing a solution is it easy and intuitive for your team to use? Can non-tech people who are resistant to this technology get it, use it, and actually enjoy using it? The second question is reliability. Does it consistently deliver the outcomes as expected? We look at a 90 to 95% success rate, if not 100%, especially when it comes to compliance. Third is accuracy. Is the response consistently accurate? So one thing that we try to do in all of the solutions we develop is that when you're looking for a response, knowledge retrieval response, we try to source the information so that you can check against it, and you can also see that it's not hallucinating in terms of its responses. So let's finish here with the full picture. So we saw those three different solutions, but the key thing that we're trying to show is not just one solution adding impact, but all three cumulatively having a huge return on investment for the organization. The weekly saving is 1,690. Annual saving is around 87,847. And you're looking, if we were to build this for Granite Trust, at this stage, we may not even be at the build stage, but if we were, it would be a 21 weeks full payback. So this is the breakdown. So you can see here that policy and compliance knowledge bot, even though it was rated in third, has the actual highest return on investment. And it's a surprise. It wouldn't be something you would expect it to have as the highest return on investment. But it does, when you do this kind of work, this kind of exercise, allows you to see those numbers in a way that you probably wouldn't have thought initially. So this solution, let's say, or these three different solutions, we would estimate around about 35K to build. And then in your first year, you would see a 52K return. In addition to that, it is important to mention that Jersey has the productivity grant that I think many of you might be already aware of, and it makes perfect sense when organizations are looking at AI and automation solutions to take advantage of the Jersey productivity grant. We've helped a number of organizations that work with us to actually get and be successful with the productivity grant. So I believe there's about 3-4 that we've supported in their submissions as well, and all have received the productivity grant. So when you compare what you would get with and without the grant, you can see what I showed in the previous slide. Build cost 35K, and the net year one benefit would be 52K with a payback period of 21 weeks. But with the grant, it would half that completely. So the effective build cost would be 17,500, and the payback period would be 10 weeks, and the net year one benefit would be 70K. So it's something that makes complete sense, that if you're thinking about how to use AI and automation, is to take advantage of the productivity grant, and that's something that we can definitely assist and support you when it comes to the submission of that application. So the framework. So you've seen how Granite Trust went from we think we need AI and automation to we now know which processes we should focus on, to now knowing what the quantifiable impact per process is, to now a cumulative understanding of around about 87,000 in terms of money saved per year. How do we do this? How can we apply this thinking inside your own organization? So it's a 5-step process. So the first is, as mentioned, map your processes, identify the highest volume, most manual processes across department, score honestly, rate each on time drain, cost, risk exposure, and scalability bottleneck. We look to prioritize the top 2 to 3, so focus on the areas with the highest combined score, or looking at that visual map, looking at the ones that are most in red. And then most important is to model the ROI. If you can understand the numbers before you decide on the solution, you'll know if it's worth the time to develop or not. There's no point developing a solution that has little impact to the organization. And then once you're at that place and you know that this particular process has the biggest impact, it's to start with that process, prove the return, and then expand and move on to the next. So this moves me nicely to the next slide, which is we are going to go through this framework with organizations. So we are providing an AI opportunities workshop, April the 16th at 9:30 to 12:30 p.m., where we can run the exact same process that I've gone through with you today, and for you to then have a similar framework, but also the cumulative return on investment across 3 to 5 processes that we would identify in the workshop. So it's a free 3-hour structured session with your leadership team or process owners who would be keen to see their particular areas to utilize AI and automation. So we, again, as mentioned, we map those highest impact processes using the same framework I've gone through with Granite Trust. And then you will leave with the prioritized opportunity list and the initial ROI model that you can play with and tweak after the workshop. So we are limiting this to 5 businesses only. So this will be a group workshop with 5 businesses in which we will walk you through this entire framework so that you have a practical guide with an ROI model of which processes you should focus on when it comes to AI and automation. So if you are interested in this opportunities workshop and to see how AI and automation can support your business and which areas would have the biggest impact, we do have a QR code here. And I think my colleague Joanna will share a link as well in the chat for you to sign up your interest. So the next step would be just to register your interest if you're curious to learn more about it. And once you register your interest, we will follow up with more details and the next steps around the workshop. Great. So that is me done, and I will now pass it over to Phil to close off the session.
Thank you very much, Anish. Yeah, I just oh yeah, we've got two links now to the workshop, so you can register twice. They're in the comments. Let me just make sure the puppy has awoken. Typically, okay, she's barking at me. I think Google Meet cuts out the barking sound, but I can hear it in the background. So let me just share my screen once more and start slideshow. Perfect. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So as Anish said, thank you very much, Anish. That was marvelous work showing us through the process there. So yeah, 3 things that you want to take away from today. First of all, don't start with the technology. Don't have there's so much technology out there around AI. It's not starting with that. It's start with where the money is. Where's the benefit? Where's the efficiency? So you know, what processes could be the big candidates for AI automation? And as Anish said, we walked you through that process. And yeah, it's the thing with AI. It's not about replacing your team. It's about freeing up those team members to concentrate on higher value work. Number 2, the numbers are real and reachable. So Granite Trust there is it's a fictional company, but we have implemented similar solutions for other companies, not within Trust, but in all sorts of different companies. All Island Media, Rubis, D2 Real Estate, ICANN, the Care Commission. We've seen this level of return on investment, and typically it's within less than 6 months that they're getting a return. And obviously, the third point here, it's a great time to start because this productivity grant, it reopened at the end of January, so it's really time to get in there because I think there's 2.6 million pounds up for grab, 50% funding. You probably want to get in there as soon as possible, and if you do, and if you like what you've heard on this webinar, then we can certainly help you, walk you through that process and walk you through applying for the productivity grant as well. So really is a great opportunity to start your AI journey this year. Perfect. Okay. So the idea was to have questions and answers, but we do not have any questions in the chat. Is there anyone out there who wants to put a question in the chat, or is happy to speak up and ask their question in person? Oh yes. Hi Milo. How would a business go about applying for the productivity grant? Yeah, so first of all, if you go onto the Jersey Business website, there's an eligibility checker, so you can go in there and determine if your business is legible for the grant. And I think it's quite simple. I think you have to have, you can't be just a sole person business. You have to be employing someone locally to be applicable. And yeah, there's other questions as well. There's maybe certain sectors they don't do, but yeah, it tells you pretty quickly. And then it's kind of a questionnaire we have on our website. We've taken the questions because it's an online portal, so you have to log in and everything. But if you go onto our website, you can search in the resources section, and it'll give you the list of the questions that they ask. It's not too bad. I think there's maybe 6 or 7 like big questions that they're asking about where you will see saving, where you'll see efficiencies, will it lead to increased sales, and all these kind of questions. So yeah, you fill that out. There's a kind of word count limit on those questions, and then and then you submit that, and then I think it normally takes about, it depends on how many they've got queued up, but it normally takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get an answer. There may be other, I think that there's like if you're applying for under £5,000 of funding and applying for between £5,000 and £75,000, there's a slightly kind of quicker route if you're doing a lesser amount. But yes, yeah, we've been super successful with it. As I said, 100% success. Anish said 100% success rate with it. So yeah, if you want our help with doing that, then we'll certainly can get involved. I hope that answered your question, Milo. Lucas has asked, what's the benefit of using an internal chatbot over Copilot and a policies and procedures document? Anish, do you want to take that bad boy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So the first thing is cost. So the Copilot chatbot that exists within MS365 is limited per the licenses that you have. So for example, I remember one organization we were working with, they did the same thing, but they were limited to I can't remember how many documents. I think it was 10 documents, if I can't remember. So it limits you on how many documents you can use for that chatbot to have access to. The second thing is what you would like to do as a result of the response the chatbot gives. So with Copilot, obviously you have the prompt or the instructions you give it, so you can decide how it responds. But with Copilot Studio, you could do more. So you can ask it to summarize, you can get the particular clauses, you can connect it to vector databases. So I don't want to go too technical, but it can connect to vector databases, which you can increase the accuracy, the reliability of the retrieval of that policy and procedures document. And you can deliver tasks. So if, for example, you wanted to retrieve a particular policy and procedure document for the particular clauses, and then you wanted to summarize it, and then you wanted to send a draft email or create it into a document, you can do that all through Copilot. Copilot Studio. But with Copilot, it's a lot more limited in its functionality and tasks, accuracy, and also in terms of the number of documents you can use.
Perfect. Thank you, Anish. We'll go live and direct to Steve Gully at Granite Trust. Steve.
Excellent. Hi, look, thanks to the Blue Llama team for your series of webinars. They've been very informative and very useful. So I guess the question I wanted to just put to you is that firms like us, we get inundated these days with people who've got the latest tech solution and the things that can do it all and save lots and lots of time, because at the end of the day, that's what, for firms like us, giving time back to our employees is the greatest thing that we can actually do and the greatest way to enhance our offering to our clients. But is there a way that when you're being offered these sort of third-party plugins as solutions for issues that you may have, that you can actually test them? Because there's things that people promise, but a lot of this I think is quite new. It's not necessarily being properly trialed or embedded, but if you go down the route of trying to implement and it's not quite working, you're kind of a little bit stuck. And I think that's where lots of people are a little bit unsure in terms of this kind of new adoption of AI. The concept sounds great. Implementation, if it works, would be brilliant. But actually, when people try and get things sort of off the ground, it kind of stalls a bit. Is there any way that there is a possibility of validating it? Is that something Blue Llama can do in that sense, to really look at demystifying, I think, some of the potential solutions that firms are happy to put out there, but maybe aren't quite as good as what they claim to be?
Yeah, really good question and well articulated, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, I suppose what we do here is we're not creating a product, so it's not something that you get off the shelf and you have to kind of fit around your business. And you know, a lot of these products as well, you know, designed for the UK market or US. I know there's some sort of reg tech for offshore jurisdictions as well, but we're taking your existing process, so we're working with you. We're going have a number of discovery sessions to work out what your existing process is. We map that out, and then we look at it and say, well, where can AI and automation sort of fit around your process? So it's the same process that you've been using, but it's more automated. It's connecting those different systems that you're already using, whatever trust system you're using, your you know, SharePoint we talk about a lot about, and it's connecting all those together, but just making it less time intensive for your team. So I suppose our approach is different than buying something off the shelf, which might promise a lot, but when it comes to it, you've invested, you know, tens of thousands of pounds to get this new product in place, and it doesn't quite fit. We will walk you through that process, and if there's any problems that arise or things that you know, risks, then we can, you know, we won't go ahead with the solution if it doesn't quite fit. So I think our approach is different. We're not software providers. We're using all this technology. Microsoft Power Platform is our main tool that we would use, and we're fitting it around your business to automate those existing processes. Does that help? And Anish, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Steve. And actually, we do come across this concern or issue from other partners who have used third-party solutions that didn't go well because not of anyone's fault, but I think the key problem was the lack of discovery and validation done up front before jumping into an annual contract. What I've shared now was a maybe initial idea of a solution based on the discovery of the step-by-step process. But what we would always do is sit with the process owner, go through step by step exactly what they do and how they do it, because we know there are going to be certain unknowns before designing a solution. And once we find that there is a particular area that we're not too sure how those two connect, we would then do further discovery to validate that before developing the entire solution. So we try to minimize the risk on both sides. So it's a win-win. So there's no point us promising you everything and then developing it and only for it not to work, but also for you to have the validation first to say, yes, it can be done. And then we move into the next phase. So for a number of organizations, we've done POCs, so proof of concepts, to see does the actual flow work end to end. It could be on our own environment initially before we say, okay, this works. Would be at a significantly lower cost to do the POC. But once you've tested it and we know it works, we can then move slowly into your environment and production so that you know that what we're developing is embedded. It does do what we say it can do, and you can have trust in it. There hasn't been a solution we've created that's in an organization not being used. So every single solution we design in AI and automation is being used consistently every day, which is amazing for us to see, because it's genuinely having an impact consistently, which is the biggest concern business owners have, is we want to use it, we use it, and then it just exists there on the shelf somewhere, or it didn't actually get its impact. So yeah, I think our approach, as Phil mentioned, is very much around customizing it, validating it, and lowering the risk stage by stage with the organization.
Thanks, Anish. Yep, brilliant stuff. So Will Wilson asked, how much do your one-to-one workshops with businesses focus on the risk and regulatory angles? There will naturally be more hurdles for regulated trust and fund services administrators. Yes, I mean, first of all, the workshops that we do, the one that we're doing next month is that has 5 different businesses in it, is the idea. But if we have more than 5 people, then we might look at sort of putting the businesses together in sort of similar categories. But in terms of our risk, in terms of the workshops, it's really down to you and the types of business and what's important to you. And so, yes, we can look at risk and regulatory angles. A hands up, we're not experts in working with regulated businesses. Although, having said that, we are working with a regulator. over here. So so we are building this understanding, and we have done, as Anish said before as well, we did Ask Max as well. So that was a chatbot. Early days, it was about 2 years ago we launched that, but that was a chatbot that was involved with AML and financing of terrorism and stuff like that. So we do have a little bit of an understanding on that. But if it's important to you, then absolutely we can look at those angles. And let's see, we've got a few more questions. So we've just got a few more minutes. So someone from N Trust has asked, are you looking to use AI where data is non-Microsoft system, where data is in non-Microsoft systems such as Viewpoint and Plain Sail? Yeah, absolutely. If it's got an API, then we can integrate it with it. So it really depends on how open that system is, but for sure, yes. So we can extract information from it, and we can post information out to it if it's got an API, and we can happily work with those providers. So most modern software, and I'm sure those things do. So yeah, we would absolutely be fine with doing that. And with the minute drafting system that Anish was talking about, yes, some companies might have information about their company, the companies they administrate in SharePoint, but it's more likely to be in one of those systems. So yeah, we integrate with many different CRMs and different systems for different types of businesses. Anything to add on that, Anish?
No, all good.
Okay, and then back to, so probably just two, it's got a few more questions, might not get to all of them. Milo asks, thanks guys, yes, that answered my question. Also, what steps did you put in place to be able to gain the credibility to be able to work with financial companies in Jersey, and were there any certifications that you need to obtain, as I understand that the JFSC is highly regulated? I suppose, do we have any? We don't have any. I mean, yeah, we don't have any actual accreditations or anything, but I suppose it's just experience, and yeah, just the more work you do with these type of companies, the more you understand them. But yes, it's similar to the question before, really, isn't it, about regulation? So yeah, if those important areas, then we can certainly dive into them. Anything, Anish, to add on that one?
No, all good.
And then Jerry, great presentation, thanks. Most of the savings shown involve staff cost reductions, which are not realized immediately. This is true, but the hope is, yeah, that time is then used to better benefit. Also, staff not only cost, but are billed not cheaply. Yeah, this is one of the things. I mean, we're experiencing this with Blue Llama as well. Like in terms of web development now, you can do a lot more in less time. So it is a big conundrum about, yes, we're certainly, we're using those people less, but yes, they are also how we bill out. But yeah, the trouble is other businesses are going to be moving towards AI and being able to streamline and then reduce their costs. And yeah, it's a big question that no one really in AI has answered. So what that may be worth taking into account, yes. Also asking the staff to participate in a migration to systems which will potentially affect them in various ways. So yeah, absolutely. There's positioning it with your staff is really important. Getting them on board early on. Involved in pilots, getting them to see the potential advantages of it for them. I think that's a really important aspect. Yeah. Anything to add, Anish?
Yeah, I think the last point is a very important one. It's something that we take very seriously on our end. So I give you an example with the Jersey Care Commission. When we started this project, we knew there was some particular resistance from staff around using the technology. And I made it a very core point to focus on, one, understanding their flows and what they would want from a solution. So keeping them involved in the creation of the solution was very important. But two, to also show them the value of the solution before it's developed from the perspective of how it's going to help them, rather than replace or change or make them feel fear. And what also I uncovered was things on what they hated in the process, which I focused on more from the AI automation, and where they felt would help them in terms of the value created, and I focused on that. So when then the solution is designed and developed, they feel included, but they also have something that they can use straight away. So with the solutions we've developed in this process, the back and forth with staff members has been an experience of more fulfillment for them, because they know that they're going to have a tool that's going to help them with their job better. And that's the focus I try to have with the organizations that we work with.
Perfect. Okay. And just lastly, so yeah, building on Jerry's point from earlier, Will Wilson saying, need to consider the effects of the business model, e.g. time saved by a staff member may equate to reduced billings against the customer entity. Absolutely. So explaining this to the client and still getting paid can therefore be difficult, particularly as clients are also looking for a saving when they find out that you're using AI-enabled solutions. Worth bearing in mind during the ROI assessment phase as well. Yes, if it's directly related to billing, then for sure. Yeah, it's a business question really. Yeah, anything to add on that one, Anish?
Well, I think
yeah.
I think it is an interesting one. It is a tough one to answer from from a non-technical and a business perspective and an industry specific one. But I think the way I can maybe answer that is that companies and trusts will do this, will use the AI anyway, because it's going to be there, it's going to be accessible, it's going to be important. The market will change, costs will go down as a result, as expected. So, the way the market moves is something that's kind of a little bit out of our control, and therefore the competition will, or clients will look at where it's lower cost. That's where the market will be driven. So it's less really about, the ROI will definitely change as a result. But I think, yeah, as Phil mentioned, it's a business question, but it's also a market driven question. And I think that will impact everybody in every industry, that costs will go down if AI is being used to service and support with the delivery. I think that's going to be expected across. That's my kind of more philosophical sense response to that question.
Yeah, and then Jerry's last comment, not less of a question, but he's kind of saying that I'm old enough. Are you that old, Jerry? To remember the days when companies used lease lines and took a dim view of relying on the then nascent internet to save money. It happened eventually, but in common with AI, reliance on IT has risks involving the further lowered possibility of coping manually in the event of hacking or other serious system interruptions. Thank you very much, guys. It is time. We're at the hour. My puppy is awake and needs to. There she is. Look. Oh, she needs to go out for a pee, I think. Otherwise, she's going to pee on me. So thanks very much. And yes, do sign up for our workshop if you found today interesting, because we'd love to work with you to improve your efficiency. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, Phil. Just to finish, guys, if you don't leave, if there is an interest for a trust-specific workshop, do let us know, because I can see that's a very specific direction. So if you are a trust organization and you'd rather think of a workshop specifically for trust, do let us know, and that's something that we could discuss with you.
Yeah, and if you're taking, if you're really taking this seriously, then we also do discovery one-to-one as well. If you don't feel that working in a workshop environment with other companies is the thing for you. Brilliant. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Take care.
And see you next time. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.